listening. Super popular among these top players. I kind of hope now we'll see the... Oh!
Guess what?
Oh, yay!
Boom.
Are they listening to our show, Anish Giri?
Anish has been watching your chessable course, Simon, clearly.
Of course, yeah.
And yeah, this is maybe a good strategy against the younger players. You don't want to memorize reams and reams of theory. You don't want to have to be too direct. You just want to get a position against them. And here we go. Another good point behind the English opening is White's knight has a perfect square now behind this pawn. Just pointing towards the center, not occupying the center, as we talked about in that video earlier. And okay, the black bishop coming out, putting some pressure on White's knight and White's queen. Another good point behind the English opening. It has a nice safe square to sit on early in the game. And the players moving very fast now. We see a traded bishop for knight, maybe a small gain for White there, but Black does have a very strong formation in the center. And Simon, you talked about the iron English. What makes it so strong and iron-like, this type of position? Is this a position you covered in your course, maybe?
I actually give a different setup for White. I think when you're trying to learn an opening, and this is particularly for club players, players who are just learning something new, it makes it a lot easier if you can play the same kind of setup time and time again, so you don't have to learn many different variable ways, you know, the position turns into. So I recommend the setup that Botvinnik played when he became world champion and he made famous, but also a setup that Magnus Carlsen plays regularly or has done over the last 5 years, and many other players, which controls the light squares. The line that Anish is playing here is also a very common line, and he's got the two bishops, you can see.
Even this move that Anish has just played kind of looks a little bit strange.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is all very normal, very normal, because, again, White's got the two bishops and you want to develop your bishop. So I think Anish is just thinking, where is my dark square bishop best placed? And he's just aiming to fianchetto it. And this move is very double-edged from Pragg, because in one way, you're attacking the knight, you're gaining tempo, but in the other way, look at the dark squares you're opening up. The dark squares now are really, really weak, and you don't have a dark square bishop as Black to cover them. Maybe we can show that, David, just on the analysis board or on the main board there.
So, for example, if Black, OK, he doesn't castle, he takes off this knight, which was actually just sitting on the edge of the board. A very surprising decision. We're going to see two bishops against two knights yet again. But, for example, if Black had castled, now the bishop and queen line up. As you mentioned, Simon, this black pawn now in the centre looks like it's overextended. It wishes it could kind of push back. Pawns don't move backwards, unfortunately, but if it could move back and block this diagonal, because actually checkmating ideas are on the board the whole time. But in the current position, we've just seen bishop takes knight, and the fact that Anish Giri is thinking means he might not play the most obvious queen takes bishop. Instead, he might willingly ruin his own pawn structure. He has indeed done this. He's given himself doubled H pawns, but yes, these pawns are ugly. At the kind of as compensation for this, he has opened up his rook. A really nice line now for the white rook. I think it would be almost suicidal for Black to castle on the king side, because suddenly the white rook will slide across, hitting the black king. Suddenly the bishop will move across, for example, in this position, and everything is pointing towards this one square. All of the heavy pieces, and Black's king, I think, is just going to be doomed long term. There's no way you can really hold this together. Unless you're super brave and kind of really ingenious with your solutions. But I think in this current position, castling would be a practical mistake. It would make more sense to me if Black maybe starts developing his knight, his queen first, and maybe even trying to shift his king in the opposite direction, shift the king to the queen side.
To me, this looks like a crazy position. You know, the bishop pair against the two knights. Pawn structure is like random.
It's quite funny, because when, you know, we were both juniors around the same time, we're similar ages, and when I was a junior, I was playing the English opening all the time. So this is like when I was 8, 9, 10, whatever, and all my peers, you know, they'd always be playing E4 opening. It'd be like, you're so boring. You're playing the English opening. The English is such a boring opening. How can you play that? You're an old man before your time. And you know, it is actually, as we can see from this position here, a very fascinating opening. And E4, in some respects, is much more boring, especially at top level, because you have many drawish lines there. In the English, you don't have those lines. So don't listen to what other people say.
No.
Just do it anyway. Don't listen to them.
Where Simon and I both played each other when we were very young, like maybe 8 or 9 years old. And when he played the English against me, that was the very first time I faced that opening.
Oh.
I was like, what is this? No one picks up that pawn. And so I was like, okay. And I just made up something there. Lost
And
my
crushed me,
queen.
probably.
No.
Oh, no.
It was the game where I lost my queen. And then I thought to myself, he was like, I'm going to win, and I was like, I don't want to lose. So I had a rook in return for the queen.
Baby.
And no, I won one pawn, and then I won another pawn. And then he offered me a draw, and I was like, yeah, I'll have that.
So the first time you guys played the English, it was a draw.
It was a draw.
Yeah.
Solid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it, well, these games, how would you describe the English games? Are they fighting? Are they solid?
That's the beauty of it, I think, the English opening. It suits all kinds of styles. If you want to be solid with white, you can be. But, I mean, if you're in a fighting mood like Anish Giri right here, you can completely imbalance the position. You can open up lines. White's queens and bishops can fly out. Yeah, the English opening has a lot of potential. And likewise for black, as Jovanka says, you can kind of freestyle in a way. You can pretty much do anything as black, and you will be okay-ish. But, yeah, here, I mean, this position, it's actually quite funny because we looked at the game between Ding and Jordan van Foreest, and that game was 2 bishops against 2 knights, and white also had doubled h-pawns. And we've got the same again. But meanwhile, big moment for Praggnanandhaa. Again, don't castle towards the king side.
It's also interesting to see the evaluation bar. I know it's not maybe a very strong evaluation bar, but it does seem to favour Prag's position, which I find a little bit surprising. I just love this dark square bishop. You can never exchange that bishop off as black, and it's on a beautiful diagonal. But maybe I'm relying too much on just one piece. If one piece is going to win the game, I could see that bishop certainly being that piece. But I think I'd still take white here personally. I mean, just looks...
The one with the attacking chances.
Yeah,
for now at least.
Yeah.
And the only issue is, what's white going to do with the king? I mean, yeah, it can move to the left side of the board, but, it's not especially safe there. But, because of the dark square bishop, it's like both a good defensive and attacking piece. And, well, you'll be relieved to see that Praggnanandhaa listened to David, although they can't really hear us commentating. But there was some kind of subliminal messaging going on, and he listened and he understood. There's no way
Do you ever have that? Talking about subliminal messages, sometimes when I'm playing, I think you can actually, now this might sound a bit weird, but when you're sitting there for 7 hours, you can kind of get into your opponent's mind and then get into yours. Yeah. And sometimes, even if they play a really odd move, you kind of expect that move, and it's weird. It's like this move, you just think they're going to play this move, even though it's a weird move, and then they play it, and it's like, how did that work out? It's like some kind of mind power going on. I don't know. Was that just me being a bit weird?
No, I think
psychic, maybe.
Well, I don't know. Maybe psychically weird, yeah. But I don't know. Do you ever have that?
No, I have that quite often. I mean, one of the things that I get with, especially we're asking for our quiz of the day about opening struggles, is that I've analysed this position, I've thought about everything, and then when I get to the board, I'm like, what happens if they play this move? Yeah. And sure
then
enough,
they play it. Yeah, they're homing in on your thoughts, and they're
exactly.
they can
Out of
somehow.
all the 10 moves that you've analysed, they've kind of honed in on that one that you're like,
Does that happen to you, David? Or
all the time.
All the time. Yeah. There you go. So it's not just me. Good.
Chess players are psychic. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, we have had a couple of moves, and maybe these two players are psychic as well, because they've both copied each other. They've both castled their kings over to the queen side. So no big attacks yet. Both kings are maybe targets long term, but for now, it's all about mobilising white's bishops or mobilising the black knights. And I've got to say, the more I look at it, the more I think, yes, the bishops have potential, but black's knights for now have the clearer path towards good squares. OK, very good strategy, first of all, from Giri. If you castle on what we call the long side, on the queen side, always take another move to shuffle your king towards the corner. It's just safer in the corner, and Pragg copycat again. The psychic bond has not been broken. They're both copying each other's moves. Yeah, always shuffle your king towards the corner because you protect more squares that way. It's easier to hide, simply. And, yeah, still very kind of weird, imbalanced position, but the computer thinks level chances for now.
And both of these players played a draw in the first round in Chessable Masters. We can take a look at the results from round 1. We did have 3 players who were able to win their games. Sam Shanklin won against Gawain Jones. David Anton, he won the first game against 13-year-old Abhimanyu Mishra. And as we saw, Ding Liren winning game 1 against Jordan Van Foreest, a crazy game. Right there, all the other games ended with draws. Anish Giri, he played a draw against Nils Grandelius. And Praggnanandhaa, a draw against Bai. So in this one, will we have a winner? The bar just went over to Prag's side in an exciting game with the English opening.
Yeah, I mean, I like White's last move, shuffling the king right into the corner, but the evaluation bar hates it. So it's one of those positions. It's just so imbalanced, right? I would be surprised if we do see a draw in this one somehow. It feels like either the white bishops are going to take over and dominate later on, or the black knights will just be tricky. And like we saw in the Ding game, maybe the knights will somehow create a mating net later once things kind of clarify a bit.
I think it's going to open up at some point. I mean, at the moment, it's a little bit cagey, but at some point, they're going to have to open the position. Well, I say open the position would only be good for white, really, because of the two bishops. I mean, you could, if I was white here, I'd be trying to get the light square bishop on the other diagonal and try to open it up. Maybe we can show that very quickly on the board. It seems like a very, very normal thing to do, just try to get my piece that's undeveloped pointing towards black's king, and I'd use a little pawn lever in the middle to try and get rid of... The one pawn that annoys me a little bit is black's pawn in the middle of the board, so I'd want to try to move that pawn by pushing a pawn in front of the rook and just trying to get rid of that one. I mean, this seems like a very simple way to play. If I get rid of that pawn, the light square bishop comes to life as well, points over, and this seems like just a normal way to develop the game. So
I'm glad you said the word normal, because this was also my first instinct, but then I had a little bit more of a creative instinct, which is actually to kind of be a bit brutal.
In the current position?
Yeah, in the current position is actually to retreat the queen one step onto a light square.
Okay, so for example here?
Yeah, and then the whole idea is actually to step forward with the rook, 2 squares, and have some fun on the third row.
I like it. Swinging.
Across.
You're getting back into the swinging again, Jovanka. We told you about that swinging, you know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just say no. I've learned from set time. Just say no. You don't have to enter into the joke.
Really creative, though.
Yeah, I like it.
Roll
Nice
style
idea.
chess.
Yeah.
It's very caveman style, you know, but I was kind of, because I was a bit frustrated by the fact that, you know, stepping forward the bishop blocks in the rook. This is an abnormal way to play this.
Cave woman.
Yeah, maybe you can combine them all. And instead of planting this bishop here first, Jovanka's idea here, if black just waits, it's actually hard to see what black does. For example, brings a knight into the centre. Now you lift your rook up, and only then do you bring the bishop to the long diagonal once your rook's out of the way. And yeah, I mean, it's
like a nice plan.
a tense
I really like
position.
it.
I really like it as well.
I mean, you see where your opponent puts the king, and you simply aim all your pieces at your opponent's king. I mean, it's a nice way to play.
I mean, my arrow is there, sorry. Yeah, but aiming towards the black king.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Very, very interesting. We can see Praggnanandhaa, he's just thinking it's a very tense position, and it's not exactly clear what I think both sides are doing, especially for Praggnanandhaa, who perhaps has to wait a little bit more. But whilst he's thinking, well, we do have 2 competitions.
Yeah.
We have a selfie competition where this fantastic goodie bag is up for grabs.
Everything signed by Anish Giri.
Yeah, and...
Does that increase the price or lower it? just wondering for a friend. So.
You and Anish battling over having the most chessable courses. You are the winner of that.
And we see Praggnanandhaa actually stepping forward with his queen's bishop pawn. And, just share with you some selfies. And the first one's from Marco Franjes, who says, big hello to everyone in the studio, and is sending us all the greetings from Croatia. And Kaya, you asked for a cool selfie, and here it is.
That's what I got. Very cool, Marco.
And Inge Lerche Larsen says, watching the chess on YouTube to this view, and take a look at this view.
Wow.
All I needed to boost my motivation for school is Arendal. It's such a beautiful place.
Wow, so that's where the nice weather in Norway is, because it's definitely not in Oslo.
Yeah, it's where the champions train, don't they? Mesterskap.
Aha.
In Arendal.
Is it? I didn't know that. Mesternes Mester?
That's the one,
Aha.
yes.
Oh, that's a cool TV show.
And so we should head back to the board, because there's been a few changes.
Yeah, so Pragg actually really taking risks now, because he pushed forward with the black pawn quite near the black king, and Anish said, OK, I'll happily trade here. And we talked about the rooks pointing towards kings. White's rook now on this left side of the board, on the d-file, can slide across opposite black's king. And we might see a bit of a mirror image here in the position. Anish just following a typical plan, but a consistent plan. For example, OK, white has just taken a pawn here. If black recaptures with his pawn, I think maybe he should take with his knight just to activate. But suddenly we see the white rook slide across opposite the black king. OK, he does take with his knight. And here we would have seen a scenario where maybe, for example, OK, just to show, we could see the white bishops both pointing on the long diagonals and the white rooks both kind of supporting behind. And I think white has too much central control there. So instead, black does get active. This must have been Prag's idea. Normally, when you're facing the bishop pair, the two bishops, you should try and speed things up, accelerate the play before the bishops take control. And maybe his idea is to jump to the side of the board here, attacking white's queen and attacking white's bishop. So, OK, does Anish have to stop this threat, maybe, of the knight coming and attacking the queen? And he does stop it by bringing his queen to the side of the board, but out of the way of his bishop. Now his bishop, Simon's said that this bishop is going to win the game for white, so maybe this bishop on this long diagonal now is going to create some nuisance. And watch out for this idea later, the white rook swinging across to the black king.
All right, the bar now roughly to the middle. Jovanka did mention the selfie competition we have, where the prize is the signed goodie bag by Anish Giri. And then we also have that other competition going on, the question of today, where you can win a Chessable course valued at $300. And the question is, what you struggle with the most in the opening. That's what we want to know.
That's what we want to know, and it's a fantastic prize up for grabs. A course on the Queen's Gambit Declined by Alex Kolovitz. And so we do have a move from Praggnanandhaa. He's retreated his knight, getting ready to centralise it, or maybe even to move it to the left side of the board, just to protect the king. After all, knight is the king's best friend, as we've learnt from David. And, well, a lot of people being very honest with their struggles.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I have to say, I feel a lot of empathy for these struggles. Kernan Lilka says, our interns struggle the most to not play the London system. I have to say, as a Londoner and someone who does play the London system as a hobby, I also sometimes have that urge just to play a London system. But I feel can't help it.
Every opening that gets the most hate, the London system.
Really?
Every meme I see online is about how much people hate the London system. So
it's basically a bad opening?
No, it's a great opening.
It's a great opening.
But from black, it's very annoying because you can't create many winning chances. Yeah. It's annoying to face.
I have to say, I was preparing for someone and his specialty was the London system. And, you know, everything seemed to be slightly better for white. And I was just like, oh, come on. Whenever I look at the London system with white, everything seems to be equal. Why is it like that?
So the London system is not the most winning opening, I guess, then.
No, unless your name is Magnus Carlsen. He seems to win every time he touches the London system.
Yeah. But in this game, we had the English opening, and the winner of today's question of today will then win that course on the Queen's Gambit Declined. And after this game, we're going to deep dive into the Queen's Gambit Declined, which we now know is the second most popular opening on the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour among these top players. And after this game, we're going to deep dive into it, the history of that fantastic and very popular opening.
Yeah, and meanwhile, a few changes on the board. The position has slightly opened up. Simon, are you happy to see black's central pawn has been traded off?
Yeah, I think I'd be feeling a bit more comfortable if I was white here. I mean, I was feeling pretty comfortable anyway, but I think generally the more open the position comes, the better the bishops become. On the positive side, black's... I mean, another danger you got when you're playing with knights, as black is here, Prag, they can often be pushed back, pushed away by your opponent's pawns. It's quite hard to stabilise them. And this is just a real problem, knights against bishops. It's not always the bishops are better. It's that the pawns come forwards and they just push those knights back. And in the long run, this seems to be a problem with the black knights. They're not stable. Both of those black knights are not on squares where they can remain for the rest of the game. I don't know. I don't think white should push the pawn in the middle quite yet, but at some point, it just seems like they're going to get pushed around. And you combine this with the bishops, the rooks, the open lines. It just seems very pleasant for white. And I certainly think Anish is doing very well at the moment.
Yeah. Also, white's king is nicely tucked away. The black king potentially a bit vulnerable. And I guess the question, my next question, just before we go back to the players, is: does White take this pawn? Can you get away with taking it with your bishop or with your rook? I don't think you should take with the bishop, because if you do get greedy and capture, then suddenly this pawn push will release another attack against this bishop, and look, it's suddenly pinned. This is a pin. If the bishop moves, the rook behind it will fall. But it's slightly tempting to go and grab this pawn with your rook. And after this trade, you don't have the same problem of this bishop getting trapped, because if black does push forward with this pawn, you can maybe just grab. You just get greedy, and
I never considered even taking the pawn.
I didn't even think about it. I thought, no,
other side of the board. Yeah, I just didn't even look at it. I thought, no, we just get on with it on the, against the king. David noticed it straight away, grab that pawn.
I've been looking at it for a few moves already, Simon.
Yeah,
but,
well, if you can grab the pawn, why not? It's a pawn is a pawn.
He doesn't.
Oh,
goes for your idea, but very quickly.
So the only reason I didn't like this straight away is I thought black could temporarily put the knight on the side of the board, but I guess White's idea is to retreat that bishop, which I've only just seen could be a very good option. But it's black's knights; they just seem very unstable, don't they? And I mean, maybe black's fine, but I wouldn't like to be in his shoes at the moment.
Yeah, they could be very, very bad, but they could also be decent and tricky pieces later. So, let's go back to the players. It's still really in the balance right now.
And can I just bring your attention to something else? Look at the bar in the game between the youngest grandmaster in the world, Abhimanyu Mishra, and world number 2, Ding Liren. The bar is all the way over to Abhimanyu Mishra's side.
Okay, it's very tense, but it does look good for him. So, early days in that one. He's got a big advantage after the opening. It's just about whether he can convert it. Will nerves get in the way? Will Ding be able to fight back?
Wait, how big of a shock would that be? So last season, Mishra won one game in that one tournament he played against Pentala Harikrishna. It was a huge shock. It was just an amazing performance. Now he's playing world number 2.
That would be a step up. An even bigger shock, for sure.
He's just got to beat Magnus next, doesn't he? And it'd be, all done. So.
All right,
he'll break the record of Praggnanandhaa. He'll be the youngest player ever to defeat a world champion.
Yeah.
If he beats Magnus, which is and it would be incredible achievement.
I mean, he'd beat the record by 3.5 years or something at this point, Mishra.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Wow.
So still early days in that game. Just keep an eye on it, please. And that we will definitely jump over if Mishra is about to win that game.
A lot of hard work to be done, though, in the meantime.
And do remember, if you are watching us on Twitch, you can, in the control center, actually design your own screen, and you can have up as many games as you want. You can follow both this, and you can follow the studio. You can follow, for example, that game between Mishra and Ding, if you are following us on Twitch. All right, and on the move, the bar is swinging from side to side.
Yeah, and it's similar to what Simon pointed out. It's all about whether those 2 black knights on the side of the board, are they a strength, or are they just kind of locked down to each other, immobilized? Are they just kind of bystanders while the real action happens? Praggnanandhaa now, meanwhile, trying to improve his rook. He's eyeing up White's central pawns, which are slightly loose. I guess that's why you hesitated earlier, Simon, from pushing those white pawns, because it does feel a bit loose for White, but no direct threat for black yet. Black's knights can't move, even to go and grab pawns, because they have to protect each other. It's just about how Anish Giri improves his pieces. Maybe it's time to move one of the bishops, move one of the white rooks. Still so tense. And, I mean, this is the type of position which could swing all the way in black's favour, could swing all the way in white's favour. Clock times, it's still in the balance as well. I feel a decisive result in this game. I would be... I would bet... Well, OK, I'm not a gambling man, but I would be very surprised if it wasn't a draw.
Yeah, I have to...
If it was a draw, sorry.
Yeah, I have to say, I really do like Anish's position, but it comes with a caveat. I do think that he has to consolidate. So, there's a pawn under fire. I think he has to take it on a move-by-move basis, defend the pawn. That's... well, maybe it's not under fire. What am I talking about? There's 2 knights that you were mentioning. They're kind of tangled up with each other. So, yeah.
I wonder if White can try to put the rook next to the... Oh, what's this move?
No, not this one.
I thought
Pragg frowns.
I thought about putting the rook there and trying to, push those knights away, not the king.
Yeah.
It kind of makes some sense to get it off the diagonal of the queen, but I don't know. It's very strange.
This is like styles where all our styles come into question. I was just thinking of overprotecting all those pawns.
Right. Yeah.
Going into defensive mode and maybe winning on the counter-attack. Simon was thinking of the attack, and Anish was moving his king. But I don't understand what the plan is.
And here, okay, we do see the Stockfish suggestions in terms of moves right now, and 2 moves keep the balance for black. The first move is just incredible, and if Pragg sees it, I'm just going to applaud him because it's an amazing move, bringing black's knight into the centre. We'll show that in a moment. But if black doesn't find the top 2 moves, he might be in trouble. Everything else gives white a big advantage over +1. So, OK, let's jump in to show these moves on the board. The second best move, which is also fine, is to just move the rook, improving a piece. This one is possible to find. Maybe you want to stack up your other rook behind it. But the top move for black is to actually give up a knight. Plant the knight in the centre of the board where it looks like it can just be taken for free. White's pawn can just grab this knight. But if you take it, suddenly white loses on the spot because of this knight fork. This is a check, hitting white's rook, and white will lose material. For example, if you move towards your rook to try and defend it, then black's knight actually jumps out the way, discovered check, and hitting the queen. You win the queen on the next go. So this is a deep tactic. You have to see 2 or 3 moves ahead. But the whole idea is to open up this line for the black rook. And to do that, you bring your knight into the centre. The secondary trick is that white's queen can't go and take this knight because suddenly another knight fork. This is why we say knights are so tricky. This is what we call a royal fork, hitting the king, hitting the queen, and hitting the rook. That's just greedy. And actually here, suddenly the momentum might well change if black finds this move, jumping into the centre.
Will he find it, David?
I think so. I absolutely think so.
You think he's going to do it? Okay.
Yeah, because, you know, it's a forward move. You know, backward moves or the knight moves are really difficult to spot. Here, it's about going forward. You're naturally looking towards those checks.
Oh, he doesn't find it.
And, yeah, well...
It's difficult.
Yeah.
It was difficult.
It was tricky. But, I mean, this move is probably just as good, according to Stockfish. Just bring the rook up. Trying to get the other rook in, you're bringing all your pieces to good squares and playing some moves. I'm trying to just wonder what Anish's idea with his king over was, because as you said, you want to improve your position. How does moving the king there actually improve it? I'm wondering.
I don't know, to be honest. He wanted to get it out of the eye line of the black queen, but he's now within range of the black knights. The black knights are just 1 move away from checking. So, OK, despite the evaluation bar going up in white's favour slightly there, I don't trust it. White's position feels so shaky, and OK, both players, they're getting lower on the clock. This is the type of position which could just fall apart suddenly for white in 1 move if he's not careful. As we showed there, this idea as well is still in the position of the black knight jumping into the centre. Maybe it's even more powerful now. For example, if you do get time to jump into the centre, you still have this idea with a check, and you also have some checks with the black rook. So really scary now for Anish Giri. He needs to improve his pieces. I mean, these guys need to join the battle. I
would have thought Anish should maybe just over-defend, as Jovanka said now, with the rook. Just swing the rook to behind the pawn.
Defend this one.
And try to get your last piece out, the bishop. Maybe get the other rook in the game. And just trying to coordinate all my pieces. Very important to do so. Get that coordination with your bits and bobs. And at some point, I'd love to attack that black knight on the side of the board. I mean, that could be black's weakness. You know, that Achilles heel, black's knight. Right on the side, so yeah.
But these knights are forced to protect each other, so maybe, as you mentioned there, Simon, if the rook does slide across, maybe you do kind of create this threat. For example, if black moves the rook, of kicking this knight, the kind of protector, kick away the protector, and then once it moves, now you can win the piece it defended. Because suddenly there's no more knight check, you have guarded that square with your rook. So maybe a bit of a threat there. Maybe that's why black missed his opportunity to jump in. But we'll see. Anish, if he doesn't play this move, I think there's going to be tricks against the white king. Let's go back to the players. It's getting really, really complex now. Really rich position, though. This is kind of an advert for the English opening. If you just want to enjoy your chess and not memorise loads of moves. OK, he brings his bishop forward.
Maybe a similar idea, trying to coordinate if he brings the rook over next move. I mean, it makes some sense to develop, I feel.
I was worried about this black knight jumping into the centre again, but it doesn't work this time. I think it doesn't work because white's rooks protect each other. White can just start grabbing pieces. So maybe Pragg has missed a small opportunity, and you're right, Simon. If the black rook comes across, everything's at least defended now for white. The black knight's stuck. We call these superfluous knights, where one is kind of irrelevant. They're both fighting for the same square, and where they're just stuck protecting each other, the two knights. So Pragg, yeah, I'm worried for his chances now. He's missed that one shot, and he's down to 3 minutes. Anish up on 5. Still what's going to happen?
Yeah, it's not easy. And somehow you feel that, because of White's open king, that Black should be looking at maybe giving up a rook in exchange for a bishop, just to kind of get at White's king. And I think the idea is on the board, but okay, Anish has gone into safety mode and overprotected his one vulnerable spot, the c4 pawn. And how to continue with the black piece is not easy at all.
Yeah.
Maybe White can even double up on the c file with the rooks before doing anything, because, just try to bring everything around the white king. Then you've got this pawn break, haven't you? That David pointed out, this pawn break to unstabilize Black's knight at the right moment. So, this is a little bit strange. I mean,
that looks very slow.
I mean, that's really calm, isn't it? I mean, really, really calm, that move. But
he's such a good positional player, Praggnanandhaa. That's the very positional move, but this is a tactical position.
Yeah.
So taking a time out to just improve a pawn feels a bit slow, and that's why the evaluation bars have reacted all the way on White's side.
Well, can you play the move straight away?
Yeah, I was going to ask. I mean, push the pawn forward, attack the knight.
Is this a big blunder from Praggnanandhaa, potentially? We talked about these knights stuck defending each other, and maybe now White can push forward and kick away, as we called it, the defender, the guardian of the other knight. And after a trade of pawns, for example, we see that this pawn is protected 3 times. So Black can't really go and take it. If you take it, you just lose a piece. After the white rook recaptures, it's defended sufficiently. White has an extra piece here. And if you can't take it in this position, what do? Is the idea to jump into the center with the knight again? But now, for example, queen takes knight. This is the same tactic, remember, hitting the king, hitting the queen that we saw earlier. But after the rook recaptures this knight now, we see a position where wherever White puts this bishop, for example, we see 2 bishops against just 1 rook. And that's a decisive material advantage for White. So we could well see Anish Giri in charge, in control of this game, if he plays this move. And it's not difficult, is it?
No, everything he's played before has been building up to this moment, moving that king off the long diagonal. Well, he obviously had this pawn move planned. So it's just now about calculation and just to work out there's no tricks and we don't see anything. White's king seems to be pretty safe.
Yep, the king is super safe.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to take your chance at some point, haven't you, when you're playing chess, even if you... That's the thing with the English Opening. Again, I mentioned that a lot of people would say when I was younger, well, he's played this move, which I did mention was also very tempting, but it's a real safety first move, isn't it? You've got to take your opportunities while they're there. Maybe it's very strong, same idea. Not really sure what Black can do. But, I mean, the thing about playing the English Opening is you start the game quite calmly, but it doesn't mean it's boring. You're keeping all the pieces on, and something will come to life at some point in nearly any game of chess, really. You don't have to always force the fireworks. They will always happen at some point. Yeah.
No, I was just smiling and laughing a little bit, but not because of what Simon was saying. It's because this is exactly what I say about the Caro-Kann. It doesn't have to start off with fireworks. You can be dull at the beginning, and the fun will happen
Would you say
eventually.
It's a dull opening then?
It can be.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I'll be honest.
I'm really
it
using
can
your
be.
words and twisting them today, aren't I? Sorry about that. So,
It's fine,
horrible.
Simon.
Yeah, no, I don't mean it. I mean, the Caro-Kann's very exciting opening.
It can be.
There's a lot of opening snobs out there who judge other openings like the London system, the Caro-Kann.
There are, I like that.
I
It's
can
really
imagine.
nice. Opening snobs. That's a really good term.
There's a lot of opening snobs out there. They think that their opening is the best and nothing else exists. But computers have shown, Chessable have shown, every opening's playable if you know them well enough. You need to work on them. You need to know your kind of ins and outs, all the little details. But
100% agree. And I think opening snobs, you can't play that opening. It's rubbish. My opening's better because I've played it all my life. And, I've played it since when I was a young man in the war, and I've been playing this opening. And how dare you come along? My blooming London system is fantastic. But there are opening snobs.
So
I
many.
like it. Yeah, there are. You're totally right, though. You've got to have an open mind, haven't you?
At the top level, they're all very open-minded. That's why you see Magnus. He plays so many openings which are considered dodgy, and some of them are dodgy, but he's open-minded, and that's the only way you learn about chess.
And obviously, because it's the psychological thing as well, right? Surprising in the opening could be a good idea.
Yeah.
But do the computers, and maybe now especially with AI being a big part of chess openings, do they have favorite openings? Openings they consider much better?
Well, they've been trained because, you know, if they play the mainstream openings, it probably will just fizzle out into a draw. So they've kind of been trained to play these dubious openings, and you see them just breathing new life into the variation. And I'd have to go to the board because things are going crazy.
This is crazy.
Here.
Absolute madness.
OK, we just missed a couple of moves there, but Black has given up a knight. I don't know whether this is out of desperation or necessity, but Praggnanandhaa has given up a knight, and now he's gone to attack the white queen. And Stockfish here, the computer, we can see the 3 top moves. 3 moves give white an advantage, but the best move gives up the white queen. And sacrificing the white queen, OK, he does it, but in a different way. That's the 3rd best move, according to Stockfish. And here we see a crazy position still. After this rook is captured, white is going to have a rook and 2 bishops in exchange for the black queen. A rook and 2 bishops are definitely better than 1 queen alone if they can coordinate. But the white king is a bit open, so it's not game over yet. Ooh, what do you think, Simon?
Yeah, I really like it, but I am surprised that Anish didn't take the other rook. Maybe we can show that quickly, because you can see here the black king has 2 pawns guarding it. And if we dive into the other option, which was quite critical, Anish had 3-4 minutes. He could have taken the other piece, and let's just show that on the board. And the difference of this, well, you get a very similar exchange of pieces, but now look at the black king. The black king is much more naked there. It's much barer. I mean, it needs, you know, it's like Prince William without any clothes on. He's the king. Put some clothes on, Prince William. You know, you're naked there. So this would have been a better option, clearly, I think, to go for this. But 2 bishops and a rook. Rook works very well with the bishop, so it must be Anish who's still well in charge.
Yep, so he's in control as long as he takes kind of care of his own king. So now his rook is attacked. I'm expecting him to just move it forward, and he would love to combine the 2 rooks and kind of go up to the top of the board and checkmate this black king. The fact that the kind of rook and 2 bishops are kind of numerically worth more than the black queen, that's one thing, but also 3 potential attackers. Black only has a queen to defend, only 1 potential defender. And, for example, if Black gives a check himself, the white king is very, very safe, actually, in the corner of the board. And there's no way for the black queen to kind of creep in and check it. Everything's protected, and I'm expecting Anish to just kind of line up his 2 rooks and go for the attack himself. As Simon said, he had a better option, a much better option, actually, I think, aesthetically, objectively, but right now he's still in control, and he has indeed put his rook on the square, maybe eyeing up this pawn in the centre as well. It's Giri's position to lose right now.
A couple of results have come in. Wei Yi has won his game against Hare Krishna. A good result for the Chinese in his very first tournament on the tour. It's a draw between Vidit and Gawain Jones. We are keeping an eye on Mishra against Ding Liren because the bar is still liking it for the 13-year-old. The bar is also liking it for Eric Hansen in his fight against one of the top players in the world, Jordan van Foreest. With the black pieces, that can be an incredible result for the Canadian. But in this one, Anish Giri with a lot more time on the clock as well. Do you think he's going to win this?
I would be very surprised if he doesn't, to be honest. Still needs a lot of hard work. And against the queen, there's always a chance you'll lose control. But Anish, OK, he's going on the attack now, lifting his rook up the board. That's not to bring his rook anywhere, but it's to support white's dark-squared bishop. If white's dark-squared bishop can line itself on the same diagonal as the black queen and black king, it's game over. And he can do that here as well. Look at the 2 players. They both leaned back at the same time. And that's because of this move. What a move. What a finish. Giving up the white bishop, but if the black pawn takes this bishop now, then the white rook on the g-file is free to go up to the top of the board and trap the black king.
And Pragg is shaking his head.
Game over.
Yeah, he knows it's over. There's nothing to do. He has to give up his queen.
Very nice game from Anish, I have to say, because, I mean, even though the computer said that Pragg's position was always OK, I think we all agreed that Anish's position was better throughout, and he just kept the pressure on. 2 bishops, won the game.
And it's over. 3 points.